I've been using DeepSeek V4 as my primary AI tool for the past 3 weeks, and for about 80% of what I do, I haven't needed to open ChatGPT or Claude once. The reason isn't that V4 is smarter, it's that it has features I wasn't using that make the output significantly better once you know they're there. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through every feature that matters so you can get the same results without paying for a subscription. DeepSeek V4 launched on April 24, 2026, and it comes in 2 versions. V4 Pro is the stronger model built for complex reasoning, and it performs in the same range as Claude Opus 4.7 and GPT 5.5 on most benchmarks at a fraction of the cost. V4 Flash is the faster model built for everyday tasks. It's lower cost, quicker to respond, and still strong enough for the majority of what you'd use an AI tool for. Both support a 1 million token context window, which means you can feed them massive amounts of text in a single conversation. And the part that changes the equation is that the chat interface at chat.deepseek.com is completely free with no limits on the number of messages you can send. You sign up with an email and you get access to both models, all 4 modes, file uploads, web search, and the full context window without paying anything. And because the model is fully open source under an MIT license, developers can also download the weights, self-host it, and fine-tune it for their own use cases. That alone makes it worth trying, but the features are what make it worth switching to. The biggest mistake people make with DeepSeek V4 is using it in one mode for everything. The chat interface gives you 4 distinct modes, and each one is built for a different type of task. Instant mode runs on V4 Flash, and it's designed for speed. Quick questions and simple summaries where you want a fast response without waiting for the model to think deeply. If you're asking, what's the capital of France? Instant mode is the right choice because the answer doesn't require complex reasoning and you get it back in seconds. Expert mode runs on V4 Pro, and it's where you go for anything that requires deeper analysis. Complex coding problems and multi-step analysis where the quality of the reasoning matters more than the speed of the response. The difference between instant and expert on a coding problem is noticeable. Instant gives you a working answer. Expert gives you a working answer with better architecture, edge case handling, and cleaner logic. Deep Think mode is the one that makes DeepSeek V4 stand out from most free alternatives. It uses chain-of-thought reasoning, which means the model shows you its entire thinking process step by step before giving you the final answer. You can watch it break down a math problem, evaluate different approaches to a coding challenge, or reason through a business decision in real time. This is the mode you use when accuracy matters more than speed. If you're debugging a complex issue, solving a technical problem where the first approach might not be the best one, or evaluating a decision with multiple trade-offs, DeepThink lets you see exactly how the model arrived at its answer, which means you can catch flawed reasoning before it becomes a flawed output. Vision mode is the newest addition, and it's still in beta. It lets you upload screenshots, diagrams, photos of whiteboards, and even handwritten notes, and V4 processes both the visual and the text together. The rule of thumb is instant for quick tasks, expert for complex tasks, DeepThink for high-stakes tasks where you need to verify the reasoning, and vision for anything visual. Switching between them takes 1 click, and using the wrong mode for the wrong task is the single biggest reason people think DeepSeek isn't as good as ChatGPT or Claude, when the issue is that they're running a complex analysis in instant mode instead of expert or DeepThink. What most users don't realize is that you can chain modes in the same conversation. I start a coding problem in expert mode to get a working solution, then switch to DeepThink on the same conversation and ask it to audit what it just wrote. DeepThink breaks down the logic step by step, and about half the time it catches an edge case or a cleaner approach that expert missed on the first pass. 2 passes from 2 different reasoning depths on the same problem without leaving the conversation. That one habit of matching the mode to the task changed the quality of my output more than any prompting technique ever did. The modes handle how the model thinks, but the next feature handles where the model gets its information. DeepSeek V4 has a built-in web search toggle that lets the model pull current information from the internet while answering your question. You click the search icon before sending your message, and instead of answering from what it was trained on, V4 searches the web, finds relevant sources, and builds its response from what it finds, with citations linked so you can verify every claim. This matters because any AI model's training data has a cutoff. Without web search, you're getting answers based on information that might be many months old. With it turned on, you're getting real-time data. For anything time-sensitive, like news, pricing, current events, market data, or product updates, web search should be on. For everything else, you can leave it off and let the model work from its training data, which is fast and usually accurate for non-time sensitive questions. File uploads are the feature that barely anyone touches. You can upload PDFs, code files, spreadsheets, and documents directly into the conversation, and V4 will read and analyze them. Upload a 10-page contract and ask, what are the 3 biggest risks in this agreement? Upload your code base and ask, where are the performance bottlenecks? The model processes the file, references specific sections in its answer, and because the context window holds 1 million tokens, you can upload multiple large documents in the same conversation and ask questions that span across all of them. File analysis combined with web search combined with the right mode is where DeepSeek V4 starts producing output that rivals paid tools, and almost nobody combines them. Where this gets interesting is when you stack all three at once. Upload your document, turn on web search, and ask your question. V4 reads your file, pulls in current web data for context, and reasons through both together. I uploaded a competitor's product page as a PDF, turned on web search, and asked, what are they doing better than us right now? V4 analyzed the PDF, searched for their latest announcements and reviews, and came back with a comparison I couldn't have built manually in under an hour. Web search and file uploads get better information into the model, but there's a reason the output still feels generic for most users, and it comes down to how much context you're actually loading. The context window is the amount of information the model can hold in a single conversation, and DeepSeek V4's 1 million token window is one of the largest available right now. In practical terms, that's enough to hold an entire year of company documents, a full codebase, or hundreds of pages of research in one conversation and have the model reason across all of it at once. The way to get the most out of this is to front-load your conversation with context before asking your questions. Instead of asking, how should I improve my marketing strategy? With zero context, upload your existing strategy document, your last 3 months of campaign data, and your competitor's latest annual report, and then ask the same question. The answer you get from a model with 500 pages of your context is fundamentally different from the answer you get from a model working with nothing but your one-line question. The first answer is generic. The second answer references your specific data, your specific competitors, and your specific metrics. I tested this with a product strategy question. Without context, V4 gave me a solid but generic framework that could apply to any company. With 3 uploaded documents, my product brief, our Q1 performance data, and a competitor's latest press release, the same question produced a response that referenced our actual retention numbers, flagged a specific competitive threat from the press release, and suggested a positioning change based on where our metrics were weakest. Nothing about the question or the model changed. The only thing I added was context, and the output went from generic to specific. There's a second layer to this that goes beyond just uploading documents. Before you ask your actual question, prime the conversation with a framing message. Something like, I'm uploading 3 documents. The first is our product brief, the second is Q1 performance data, and the third is a competitor press release. Read all 3 and tell me what you noticed before I ask any questions. V4 reads everything, surfaces patterns you didn't ask about, and by the time you ask your real question, it already has a working model of your situation instead of treating each document in isolation. The average user never loads more than a few paragraphs into a conversation, which means they're using about 1% of the context window they have available, which is why the output always feels generic. Once you're using the right mode and loading context properly, the natural question becomes whether you still need to pay for ChatGPT or Claude, and the honest answer might surprise you. The honest assessment is that V4 Pro is not quite at the level of Claude Opus 4.7 or GPT 5.5 on the hardest reasoning benchmarks. But for the vast majority of everyday tasks, the difference is either invisible or too small to justify paying 8 to 9 times more. The reason the cost is that low is that DeepSeek had to build a more efficient architecture from the ground up, because they didn't have the same hardware access as US labs, and that constraint produced a model that does more with less compute. On coding specifically, V4 Pro is slightly ahead with the best models available, and on competitive programming benchmarks, it holds the top score. On math, it's within a few percentage points, but noticeably behind on the hardest tasks. On everyday tasks like writing, summarizing, research, email drafting, data analysis, and document review, the output quality is comparable. The way I decide is simple. If the task has a clear right answer, like code that either runs or doesn't, V4 Pro handles it. If the task is open-ended and requires judgment, like evaluating whether a strategy makes sense or catching subtle tone issues in writing, that's where I still open Claude. And V4 Flash is 90 to 100 times cheaper than Claude Opus 4.7 on the API, which means if you're a developer building an application, the cost savings are enormous without a meaningful drop in quality for most use cases. The combination of free unlimited chat access, 4 specialized modes, a 1 million token context window, web search, and file analysis makes DeepSeek V4 the most capable free AI tool available right now. Where it doesn't compete is in ecosystem integration. ChatGPT has its plugin ecosystem and app store. Claude has projects and artifacts. Google has workspace integration. DeepSeek V4 is a standalone chat and API with strong capabilities but without the surrounding ecosystem that the paid platforms have built. The capabilities make a strong case for switching, but there are 3 things worth knowing before you go all in. First, DeepSeek is a Chinese company, which means data privacy works differently than with US-based providers. Your conversations may be stored on servers subject to Chinese data regulations. For personal use and general work, this is likely fine. For anything involving sensitive business data, proprietary information, or regulated industries, evaluate whether your organization's compliance requirements allow it. Second, there are content restrictions on certain political and historical topics related to China. If you ask about specific sensitive subjects, the model may decline to answer or give a filtered response. For the vast majority of professional and creative use cases, you'll never encounter this, but it's worth knowing. And third, while V4 Pro is close to the frontier, it's not at the frontier on the hardest tasks. If you're doing advanced scientific research, solving the most complex competitive programming problems, or need the absolute best reasoning available at any cost, Claude Opus 4.7 or GPT 5.5 is still the stronger choice. For everything else, V4 is more than capable. Knowing these limitations is part of using DeepSeek V4 well, because it means you know exactly when to use it and when to reach for something else. But getting one tool down this well kind of gives the whole game away, because it was never really about the tool. Every result I showed you today came from one habit: knowing how to actually use whatever's in front of you. The people who have it don't just win with DeepSeek, they pull more out of every AI tool they touch, while everyone else sits there blaming the model. And that habit is the structure behind my school, AI Fluency. So if you want to get scarily good with all of it, and not just DeepSeek, go ahead and click the first link down in the description and join me in AI Fluency. See you on the inside.